All right, here we go. It's another Diggers podcast. I'm Eric, and I'm in the trailer this time, and I'm joined by Matt. Terry's not here because he's away on vacation, so he's probably going to be without us for a couple of these episodes, but we're going to keep it going. And this time we wanted to touch a little bit on, I guess we'll start off with some safety first, or a lot of times we see like safety third is what I see a lot. For my part, I think safety is, of course, the most important thing when we're at the track because it's something that maybe people don't think about all too much. But then when something goes sideways, that's when you're thinking about it. But that's not the time to be thinking about it. And so I figured we talk about maybe some things we've seen people do at the track. I don't know, maybe even some things we're guilty of ourselves. But I think there's also a discussion to be had about some of the rules. I know, Matt, with a lot of the work you do, you have a really good list of like all the SFI tag like rules, what you got to have for what you're running and what speeds. And
Yep.
out here in North Carolina, where there's a number of different sanctioning bodies. There's NHRA tracks, there's IHRA tracks, there's WDRA tracks, and then there's just tracks that even if you went to, they're not necessarily sanctioned by anybody. They're an outlaw track, if you will. So, at least around here, it's very you're on your honor, and you're on. It's really up to yourself to be as safe as you can because there isn't a whole lot of checks going on out here as far as tech goes and people getting called out on stuff. But some of it, in my
Yeah.
opinion, is maybe overkill from when it was written to when, parts have gotten so much better. But I don't know. What do you think about track safety?
Well, I think that kind of brings me back to what my dad used to tell me back in the day when he ran bracket one at OCIR. He used to race in shorts in bracket one, he told me. It's like, okay, Dad, whatever. That works out fine as long as nothing goes wrong. As time
And
progressed,
bracket one, by the way, for people that don't know the history of Orange County going that far back, how bracket racing was in the 70s, probably it was about that time that your dad and my dad were running a lot at
yeah,
OCIR. Bracket
yep.
one was the fastest speed cars of all the brackets.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think your dad would know this best. I want to say bracket one, two, and three, maybe been how they tiered that. But he would tell me stories of how he used to race the car in shorts. He would be doing his burnout and seeing guys run across the top end of the track, sneaking in. I mean, safety wise, that to me wasn't, I guess that's just how you did it back in the late 70s, early 80s. But, you know, safety is a big deal. As I progressed in the car, we would always talk about safety first. Don't ever let your respect for the race car down because that's when it could come to bite you. And like you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about watching that race down in Florida there, I think it was Bradenton. I brought up the fact that while watching some of this on TV, seeing guys stick with their heads halfway stuck out of the front of the roll cage. To me, that is just insanity and pure ignorance and disrespect for safety. You know what I mean? And we saw two dragster crashes that weekend, and I'm thank the good Lord that both drivers were okay. But it's those guys are lucky that it wasn't one of them because I don't think that they would be walking away. I take safety seriously. I don't want to be a vegetable. And I've seen guys at the track. We've been around this a long time. I've seen a lot of messed up crashes, and I've seen a couple of guys die. And I can't remember their names. The only one I remember was in complimentary in Bakersfield, Jeff Krug. I was standing there watching him make his run when he hopped the guardrail, and that killed him. That wasn't a safety issue, but my point being, there's a lot of guys that have lost their lives doing this, and but go to circle back
that
on
kind
that.
of brings up something that I've always thought, or maybe I've heard my dad say, or somebody else mention. It's kind of cliche, but that the rule book, the NHRA rule book, is like written in blood. Like every
Yep.
rule that's in that book
Yep.
got written in there because way
Yep.
back when somebody got injured or died at an event, and they put a new rule in because of that. And
Right.
you know, I think you kind of hit on it. Like for me, it's respect of the car, and that you're in something that is going much faster than you typically would be driving on the street. But I'll say, when I get in my car and I'm strapped in, I feel safer in this car than I do getting in my truck and going down the highway.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think that's how it
Absolutely.
is. I think that's how it needs to stay, because if you have enough respect for your safety equipment, your belts and helmet, and all the things that you do need to have, you're probably safer in your race car if everything's right than you are on the street with who knows who's out there doing what. So I feel like
Yeah.
in the controlled environment that is a drag race, if all things are run well, that you're probably in a safer place. But the idea is that when something does go wrong, you're protected. And we'll definitely have to come back to this topic when Terry's back, because he went through a crash
Oh yeah.
years ago, just one in his 51 years
Yep.
of racing. But
Yep.
he'll have a lot to say about safety equipment and how he essentially walked away from that.
Yeah, definitely a part two. I'm not here to, I don't want to take a shot at anybody or do any of that. I just think that this generation of racer may not have the same upbringing as we did, because there's not a lot of people, um, and I could be wrong about this, who are going into their fourth generation of drag racing. But I just think I watch racing all the time. I mean, that's what we do, and I'm seeing guys doing the burnout thing. I'm going to go through the water real fast. I'm going to back up. I'm going to go forward. I don't understand that. That just heats my blood. And I think, and like I told you before, I think it was Roy Hill um, at the Carolina Nationals or something like that. Somebody backed over him. I watched it happen with that trend of going through the water box and backing up. That's not the place you walk. Granted, Roy Hill should have known better, but it wasn't his fault. The guy
Yeah,
doing
some of
whoever
those
backed him
things,
over.
like the leaning out of the roll cage in a dragster with your belts being really loose and going through the water box, backing up and then going out and then doing your burnout. Um, I don't see how there's really an advantage to doing those things given what you're giving up safety wise anyway. If
Yeah.
you have an incident on track and your belts are so loose that you can hang your head halfway past the front bar, you're going to get thrown around and rattled so bad in there that what could have been bumps and bruises could be life ending.
Yeah.
That's all the difference, and I don't
Yep.
think that people really realize that, and they're picking up some bad habits maybe just off of what they're seeing people do, and it's kind of monkey see monkey do. There's a lot of copycat going on because, well, look, they're doing that, there must be something to it, so I'll do that.
I agree with that.
The
Yes.
way tire compounds are and everything else, I mean, don't take my word for it, but call Mickey Thompson or call Goodyear or Hoosier and ask them if there's any advantage to doing that. And I would be willing to venture that there isn't.
I could, yeah. I mean, that's part of my job, and they'll tell you. And there's some banter that I've had with some of the guys through some of the vendors that they've giggled at some of the things that I've mentioned, and I just, yeah. To me, there's no benefit of doing that. That's not going to make you quicker on the tree. That's not going to get you another round win. And I just don't see, how wet do you want your tires? To me, that's the only logical explanation for why they're doing that.
Well, and you do drag a lot of the water so much further out of the box too, which is not necessarily
Yeah.
a great thing either. Um, you know, Door cars, it's not something we run, but I have heard and seen mentioned that making sure you kind of get a lot of the rocks out from your rear quarter panel fenders, because you get out there and you pick the front end up and dump a pile of gravel. If the track staff doesn't see that and you don't see that in front of you, then you're
Yeah.
running on marbles, you know, a few rotations of your tire out, and that's not good either.
Yeah, I've never really had any issues that I've ever noticed or anything with rocks or anything like that. But, to stay on topic about safety, I'd rather be slightly overkill than get in an accident because it can happen to anybody at any time, at any track, period. And I have a Hans device. I've got my ISP helmet pads that I just wouldn't get in the car without those. I've got my own little helmet pad that I've made to go behind my head. And that one there is not really the action, I mean, you still want it to be soft, but if there was a catastrophic accident, the chances of you going like this are not as high as from side to side. So the pads today that are out on the market are not really pads. After time, you can pull it off your roll cage and tap it on the ground, and it's going to be just about as hard as a rock. Those will do absolutely nothing for you. In my opinion, they need to be banned because that type of padding, as it gets hot over a period of time repeatedly, it gets hard as a rock.
Hmm.
So anybody, in my opinion, should invest in an ISP style pad for the lateral bars. Mine now, I think I have got mine a little bit too tall. I got to shrink them down a little bit so that I can have a better field of view for race day because it's kind of hard for me. I can see, but not as good as I need to. But that with the Hans device, the fire suit, the 32A15, it's heavier, it's hotter, but hey, I don't have to worry about safety when I get the belts on. I just have some collarbone bruises. That's all. So
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, a lot of what we've touched on so far is kind of like, hey, it's really personal responsibility, these types of safety things. So it's, you know, it's a good warning to be up on that stuff because it affects, you know, you, the driver, yourself. But, you know, keep in mind it also affects your family and everybody else connected to you if something happens to you. But okay, those are things that are your responsibility, something that could happen to you in the car. Like, hey, I have personally seen people get in a dragster wearing like fleece pajama bottoms. I saw that once. It's crazy.
yep,
But you
yep,
know what? If you're in a fire and your pants catch on fire and you burn up your legs, like that sucks, but that was your choice, right? That's you. But let's
yep.
get into stuff that affects the guy in the other lane because we're out there with other people on the track and barring something happening to yourself, the last thing you want to do is also mix up another driver, right? And so where I'm going
Yeah,
with this is the discussion of excessive braking and how that
yep,
has tangled up basically an innocent driver in the other lane and wrecked both cars and caused injury to people. You know, how does
yeah,
that get reined in? Because the state of bracket racing these days, guys are holding a lot. And, you know,
yeah,
we talked about Bradenton recently and a couple of dragsters spinning out at the finish line. Dragsters, for the most part, want to go straight. Unless something gets under the tire, like they're going to go pretty straight, right? Maybe they wander, you kind of lean it back in, but at the finish line, unless something's under your tire, you know, spinning out a dragster right at the lights is uncommon, you know.
yep.
So when I see two at the same event, I'm only guessing, I'm assuming, but you got to wonder, did excessive braking have anything to do with those incidents? Was it just a cold track and there was something else? They both happened to lose traction right there and spin them out bad. Maybe, you know, not looking to lay blame on anybody, but it's the discussion of excessive braking and how that affects the other driver. And if we need to be good about looking out for each other at the track, you know, that's something we've got to, as drivers,
Well,
get a handle on.
yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I wouldn't say that it's the track. A lot of people blame the track. They don't take personal blame. Bradenton, those dudes got it. They got it down. I mean, they're racing. If you look at it, Bradenton is racing all year long. They don't stop, from my understanding. They've got the Snowbirds. They just had that race a couple weeks ago. They're going to have the big pro shootout. What is it? We're almost in January. In about 6 weeks, I think the pros will be heading down there again.
It's a good facility.
Yeah, and those guys, from my understanding, I've never raced there. I don't know if I ever will. I'd love to someday, but I just don't know if that's possible. But anyway, I'm not going to be so quick as to blame track. I mean, you saw the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of runs that guys were making with no issue, and you got these guys that come out and again, I'm glad that they were okay. You don't ever want to see anybody crash, whether they're getting on the brakes or not. But one thing my dad always told me about racing a dragster is you don't want to jam on the brake, because the brakes could lock up and you can find yourself upside down. Me personally, I don't dump it. I don't do any of that. If anything, I'll ride the brake. Womping it, there's another slang term for that guys know. I've personally seen guys and dump the chute early. I don't know that a lot of guys are necessarily doing that, because everybody is just so good these days with their dials. So the car's right there. But I've seen guys do that, dump the chute early, and it actually worked. I think it worked on me. It was guy had me on the tree. It was a close race, and I know his program. I know how he runs, and he pulls the chute early. And but anyways, I've seen that as well. But I'm not the one that's good. You'll find, dumping the guy or anything like that. If anything, I'll ride the brake or I'll be out of it. I'd rather lose the race than dump my car braking to win a race. I'm not going to do that. I'm not the type of guy to risk my entire program just to win a round of racing. That's just not me. I don't have the money to build another car, nor do I want to go through that again, build a new car. So exactly. There's other ways to do it, but you're right. Guys are holding numbers. Guys are dumping it. It's different dumping in a body car than in a dragster, so there's just so many things that you see at the track that you're just looking like, this is a Final Destination type of movie going on here. I went and got my car certified up in what is it, Ardmore, at the Ardmore track earlier this season, back in April, and the junior dragsters there were flying through the pit area. It was alarming. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, these kids, like regular race cars, driving through to get back up for the next round. And if something happened, they're going to go under a car or under a trailer. I'm not even kidding. It was a big concern.
Has killed drivers. I'm blanking on the name at the moment. Division 7, many years ago.
Well, I know about that.
Was he on jack stands or something and came off and went right under a trailer?
I don't know the whole story on that, and it God forbid it was. I think it was one of the Markham brothers. I can't remember if it was Randy or Ronnie. Grandpa actually bought, I think it was Randy's car, had his old car and was racing him. So I mean, their family knew our family. I mean, your dad would know. I want to say it was Randy. Rest in peace. It's such a horrible accident. From what I've heard, I wasn't personally there yet. I was on my way there. We hadn't just got to the track yet. But I don't know if some guys warming him up on the ground. What I heard, and this is just what I heard. So if I'm wrong, you're welcome to correct me, whoever sees this. Again, this is not pointing the blame. It's just, we're talking about safety. I don't know if the car fell off the jack stand when he was setting the brake. I don't know. Car took off, and God rest his soul, the car went under the trailer, and from what I can tell, I mean, you could just picture what happened, and I had some people rush over.
That's a story that's always stuck with me when it comes to warming up my car. If I'm doing it on stands, it's not just the jack. It's, it's a bar like this, you know, where you got
Yep,
something really
those.
solid.
Yeah,
Because it's just not worth an incident like that. But yeah, no,
no,
pit safety super important because there's lots of kids and families and little dogs these days and stuff running around. And yeah, you're right. I've seen juniors fly by me faster than regular race cars would take the return route. You know, they just
right. But to kind of put a period on that subject, um, the guy was a hero. He knew what he was doing. Highly, highly experienced racer, just had the misfortunes of something going catastrophically wrong, and he was able to steer around a few kids in the pit area, but it cost him his own life. And it's just really unfortunate. I think people need to kind of take a step or two back and say, hey, you know, we need to refocus on safety. I just think a lot of guys, honestly, there's a lot of attitudes, a lot of egos, a lot of guys get cocky. Oh, I'm not going to do that. You know, that's not going to happen to me.
or just
If
being
it
in a
is,
hurry, being too much in a
yeah,
hurry, you sacrifice basic things that you should be doing.
yeah, and you know, and I get it. You know, I'm getting older, and you know, I find myself getting a little bit more anxious when things start to go a little quicker. You kind of forget, you get real nervous. But once you're in a zone, that kind of helps a little bit. But you don't want to overlook safety, whether it be, you know, tightening up the little petcock for your water overflow or something like that. Just something so small can cost you your racing program. And I don't have the funds to go do motorsports insurance. I've checked in on that. That's like another mortgage payment each month. You know, I just can't do it. I don't have the budget. And
Yeah.
it's just something that doesn't need to be overlooked, you know. And like I said, I get bruises on my collarbones from tightening my belt so tight, but I'd rather do that than be hurt. I've got a little boy to raise, and I don't want to leave him behind because I took a corner on my safety running the race car. So,
Well, let's maybe switch it up and talk a little bit about, are there certain rules that are under the guise of safety that maybe are antiquated and could be updated or changed? One that comes to mind, and maybe this is my own laziness and not wanting to, you know, get into spending money, I feel sometimes is unnecessary, but uh, transmission SFI tag for your case, right? If you're running an aftermarket, like I've got a Denver case, right? Aftermarket case, it's got the steel insert in it. What is it? Every 2, 3 years, you've got to get that recertified?
it's 5.
5. Okay. I thought
That
it
goes
was a little
quick.
quicker than that, but even every 5, let's say, you've got to drop your transmission out, send it across the country to Reed or somebody who can actually put the tags on it. To me, that always seemed kind of like, what's the point of that? Like, my steel band is not going to go bad. And if the argument is, well, maybe guys take them out for weight or whatever, when
Well,
was
hold
the
on a
last
sec.
time you
Let's
ever
check.
heard of a planetary exploding and shredding apart a case? Like, I don't think I've ever heard of that.
You know, a lot of that, and being in the transmission business for as long as I have been with dad and building and still building, and I don't think, I don't agree with it. It's an inconvenience because you gotta strip the case, you gotta drain it, you gotta clean it so it can be shipped. Um, you got to wait for shipping. Is the way shipping is these days. Are they going to beat up my case? Is my case going to come back in 2 pieces?
Right.
Oh man, you know, and that's not something that I agree with because the new Reed cases, the old Dean Bear cases, they have the scatter shield in there. You know, I've done and built a lot of these. Dad's done and built a lot of these. You know, gear train failures are, they don't happen as much. The parts, depending on where you get them, are relatively pretty good, so they don't necessarily blow up like they used to. Um, I mean, it's not something that I agree with. I don't think it's necessary. Maybe once every 10 years, I can understand that, but they're made so well. I don't agree with it. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, just to me, some of that stuff seems excessive. Like the other one, I just got done putting a new flex plate on my car because I knocked some teeth out of the old one. But to me too, like I don't know if those are lifetime tags on the flex plate, but some of the SFI stuff to me maybe is a little restrictive or excessive, and sometimes feels like a money grab to somebody who's counting pennies.
It's a money grab. I'm going through the list right now, the little cheat sheet on here, and it's 5 years, but it's the same as helmets. I had there was that time from 2017 till now when I finally get back out there. When my dad was sick, we missed a lot of racing because of his health. But I had a brand new impact helmet. Everybody knows what those cost. Brand new. It's now useless. It's brand new. I mean, it's perfect. I take care of my stuff. It was perfect, but it's now useless. So I just bought a helmet a couple years ago. I mean, it's just you know, adding more to the collection. But some of the stuff I think is a little overkill. I believe it's, to keep the vendors happy, to keep the vendors in business. I mean, I get that part, but just some of it I think is a little bit overkill. You know, I do. And, it kind of goes to, you know, back to the way the tech's done is kind of, I think maybe it's gotten a little bit better, but having to get to the track, unload, tow to the tech. I mean, that's to me, that's just unnecessary wasted time.
Yeah, out here where I've run, I've never gone through tech. The tracks out here, they just don't have the staff or decide, hey, we don't need to do it. The drivers are on their honor kind of thing, and it works. Other than seeing a guy climb into a car with pajamas on. And again, I kind of that's your call, buddy. If your pants are on fire, but you know, I haven't seen anything in my racing out here that makes me go, geez, they really should be reinstituting tech inspections. But um, I agree that can be kind of a tedious part of your race time.
Yeah, I think on the honor system with some people they don't really care. The egos are just too much to. Oh, that's not going to happen to me. I'm too good for that to happen. You know, that's to me when something can come up and bite you, and then you're done.
Well, and
mean,
I think NHRA has even really gotten away from tech on a regular basis. You know, my dad was here, he'd probably say, he's told me a time or two about how, you fill out your stuff, but it they just say, hey, we might spot check you in the lanes or something. And that's about all they do.
yeah. How much time we have left?
Well, we're down to about the last 10 minutes.
Okay, so we'll try to touch on that quick. Well, that would be something that your dad can bring up how they're doing it at national and divisionals or regionals, which I'll need to be informed on that because I plan to hit some of those, and it's been a while, and I need to get caught up on what I need to do. But yeah, I mean, I'm always looking at my dates to make sure that I'm up, on all my tags because my luck, I'll forget something or overlook something, and they'll say, "See ya," and that's a lot of money to waste in gas to get to a race and not be able to race because your tags on or certs are up. But I think, in my opinion, in conclusion, for me at least, and then I'll let you finish it up. There is, I just think people need to look at themselves in the mirror, hold themselves accountable when it comes to safety, because that's a big deal. We're setting an example to a lot of these kids who are coming up who will do what they see. It's the same thing with football, baseball, hockey. They'll have their favorite driver and they'll want to do exactly what they're doing, whether it's how they're getting in the car, something they say, they look up to that person. It's something they do. People just need to kind of take a step back and say, hey, maybe I need to reevaluate a few things on how I'm doing my racing program, to where I can be safe. And I don't get into anything with the double burnout back and forth. I don't get into any of that garbage. I'm focused. I'm there to do one thing, and that's win. And I'm not going to cut corners on safety. So, with that being said, chime in whatever you think that you agree or disagree with anything we're saying. We'd love to hear about it. So, go ahead.
Yeah,
Cuz.
comments on the video or any posts are always good. We're trying to get this thing rolling along, and certainly want some interaction. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to start somewhere. I don't really think we've got a lot of views yet, but we got a lot to say. We got a lot of good topics. We're trying to talk to get some people to come that maybe do some interviews with some other racers, just to kind of maybe gain a couple more likes or views. But what is it? Wednesday mornings? What is this schedule now?
Yeah, we're shooting for Wednesdays at like 8 a.m.
Okay, yeah, that'll work.
Got to put one out each week.
Yeah, so you folks need to chime in, good or bad. We'll take some criticism, but be ready for a rebuttal. Because if it's not factual, we'll fact check you. And there's 3 of us, so good luck. A lot of knowledge there. So we do appreciate you tuning in, and please share. Please do, because this could be a lot of fun, and we'll have to just see where it goes. We don't know. So, but always be safe at the track. Don't ever give in on that.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point there too, that it's even if you don't think about it, we're all kind of setting examples for what other people are looking at. And you don't want somebody picking up on your bad habits. So
yeah, a lot of
safety can be personal, but there are so many things that affect the driver in the other lane too. And don't forget about the people who care about you too. Something happens,
yeah,
you'll be upset.
Yep, there's a lot of eyes, and you don't want to cut corners on safety and end up on Double O shit show. I love Double O shit show, but I don't want to ever make that myself.
You probably just made us a target.
Hey, it is what it is.
Look at these 2 knuckleheads talking about safety.
Right.
If I showed you the floor of my trailer right now, OSHA would have a fit.
Well, we're not going to talk about that because I'm in the same boat, and I need to go to the trailer today to turn the motor over, and I'll take a picture when I open the back trailer. We can see who's worse. Yeah. You got to do it. You got to be a ballerina to get in and out of my trailer right now. Let me tell you, it ain't pretty.
My trailer and car have just probably injured me the most just sitting there, because I'm guilty of clotheslining myself once or twice on the cables of the back door.
Yeah, well, I showed you that bruise from my header that I just totally drilled with my calf.
Yeah.
That shit hurt.
Yeah.
Yep. So the stories that you get, from this channel and all the other racers, I'm sure it's happened to all of them too. So Diggers TV.
There you go. From drag racing in shorts to pajamas, still happening today.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that you don't see and you don't hear that would make a whole lot of people laugh. I could tell you that much. But yeah, maybe I'll post a picture to Diggers TV. I don't know. We'll have to see. But see whose is worse. It's not normally that dirty when everything's together, but I don't have a garage right now to work in, so it makes it a little bit difficult to do. So anyway,
all right,
we good on time, or we've almost done?
Make sure you drop some comments, so you tell us what you think about this topic, or what other topics maybe you'd like us to get into, and we're going to do our best to keep rolling these out once a week so we can participate in discussions that we see going on in the racing world, or kind of throw our 2 cents into the ring and group in what you've got to say or what questions you might have that we can maybe answer. So thanks for checking it out. We'll catch you next week.
Yep. See ya. Diggers, baby.